this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Corsair XENEON 32UHD144, which is actually a surprisingly useful name because it's 144Hz, 32-inch ultra-high definition monitor. Pretty straightforward naming convention from Corsair there. And this is a 32-inch 4K panel with a number of really nice specs to it that includes some interesting highlights, and I was actually really surprised by this monitor during the testing period. I'm going to show off a number of different clips from various different angles of a lot of different games that I've been playing on it. I also used it for working on watching Netflix and other things, so I'm going to give you my experiences of what it's like. And I was really surprised by just how good this monitor is. It's one of Corsair's first monitors in this space, and they've done a really good job delivering a really good gaming experience. This is a feature-rich monitor, not surprising for the price because it's hardly cheap, but you do get some really good things for your money, including AMD FreeSync Premium, NVIDIA's G-Sync compatibility, and some really good specs that not only include 4K visuals, but also up to 144Hz refresh rate, HDR 600 and 400 nits of peak brightness, but more importantly, also has a really good color range, so 98% DCI P3, 100% AdobeRGB, and 100% sRGB as well, so it's really good for creators and those looking for color accuracy, as well as for gaming and for working as well. Obviously, you'll see some clips from watching back my own videos. I've done a little bit of video editing on here, playing around with that. And it's an IPS panel that delivers a really good experience. I've obviously messed around with the settings a lot in order to test it out. But what I found was actually I didn't really need to mess about with it too much in order to get it looking good and feeling good for gaming. And that's one of the things that I really like about it. I recently tested out a couple of other monitors where you had to mess around a lot with the settings and change them from game to game, or at least mess around and try and get them so it was looking good and satisfactory. What I found with this one is that out of the box, basically on the default settings, switching into game mode, for example, just looks really good. Really good colors in a variety of games. We've seen Call of Duty World War II, got a bit of cyberpunk here, also thrown in some Need for Speed and other things. So various different games, some fast-paced, some not so much, some really colourful and rich experiences as well. And it's able to deliver the goods in a variety of ways. Now, obviously, 4K panel, you're going to need a pretty good graphics card in order to drive it, especially to make the most of the 144Hz refresh rate. But it's also slim bezel, so it's a really thin bezel, and the monitor itself has a thin panel as well, so it doesn't take up loads of room on the desk, although as you will see, the stand is pretty big. But this is beneficial in some way because it means it's pretty sturdy. It's also really flexible and easy to mount and maneuver into position you want. It's a pretty flexible stand system that I'll show you, and the tilt and things on it, but it also works with Corsair's other things. So it's tied into Elgato's system, for example, so it'll work with the multi-mount system on the back on the stand, so you can actually attach Elgato's multi-mount thing to it and then mount, for example, a webcam on top there and do other things with it. So it has some highlights. The controls are really simple. You've got a joystick on the back and a power button. The joystick goes through the various different menus. I'll show you the menu settings that you can go into a bit later on and what you can do in there. As I said, though, it does work with FreeSync and G-Sync, so it has both of those capabilities. So if you've got an NVIDIA graphics card or an AMD, you can make sure that you've got the settings that you need to deliver the smoothest experience in gaming. And I didn't notice any problems with tearing. It's a really smooth, clean experience. Now, out of the box, I'll show you some of the setup process. It is VESA mountable, and also, as you'll see, it has a variety of connections. You've got HDMI 2.1, two of those connections, and DisplayPort 1.4, but what I thought was interesting is it also has Type-C DisplayPort connection as well, and you have all those cables included in the box. You also have USB connections on there too, so you can do pass-through and have that set up there. And that obviously gives you a variety of different things, so you can connect multiple devices or connect up whatever cable you want for the best possible experience and simple. The mounting system for the desk stand is also really simple. It just clips into place and is held down with 4 different screws, but obviously you could buy an arm or wall mount it as an alternative, as a standard mounting system there. But what you will notice on this stand is there are a number of clips for cable tidying. Also, as I said, multi-mount capable as well. And it's a nice chunky thing. It feels sturdy. The whole thing feels very premium. It feels like a very premium experience and a very good build quality. The stand itself is, however, pretty chunky and large. So bear that in mind if you've got a large desk, because what you'll see from some of these shots is it takes up a lot of room front to back. So although the panel itself is relatively thin, the stand is not. And obviously that's beneficial because it means the monitor won't wobble around and it also won't fall over and it'll be pretty sturdy, but it will take up a lot of your desk. So if you haven't got a deep desk, this might be problematic. You can just see how much room it takes up front to back there, but you can also see just how maneuverable it is. I thought it looked like a steering wheel, so it might be fun to try and steer the monitor. But the point of that actually is just how much you can turn and tilt the monitor stand, and therefore the monitor, if you want to maneuver it into certain positions when gaming or just to suit your needs as well. So there's a lot of flexibility there. As I said, you get a lot of cables included in the box as well, and you can run those cables through the back of the stand on the various clips there to keep things nice and tidy. As you will see, I end up not having a very tidy desk because I'm also running some SteelSeries speakers at the same time that I'm going to be testing and reviewing. But also I did find that there was an issue, and that's this power cable. The power cable that runs from the monitor to the brick that then plugs into the wall is far too short. And that is my one biggest complaint, which might seem like a silly one, but it is really short and caused me problems. So just bear that in mind as well, that you need a mains supply nearby, or at least an extension lead, and it's a bit of a faff, and I was annoyed about just how short that was. And here you can see some of the flexibility and tilt in the monitor, adjustable in terms of the height and positioning as well. And then diving into the settings. So the menu is controlled by a joystick, and you can go through various different presets, and you'll see that there's movie, game, text, which was particularly useful during the day for working. And then you have Adobe sRGB and DCI-P3 and those other settings that are useful for more productivity, photo editing, things like that. Loads of different settings in there. But as I said, I didn't have to mess around with them too much. You've got gamma adjustment in 2.2 and 2.4 and various different other settings in here too. You can see that there's one for AMD FreeSync Premium, for example. And there's also HDR settings, which I'll show you in a second. What I thought was interesting is there's auto switching for HDR too. So I started playing a game that had HDR. It had HDR turned on from the previous time that I was playing it, and the monitor automatically switched into HDR mode without me having to do anything. That's obviously a bonus, and that was really useful and simple. I will say, however, that the HDR looked pretty washed out, but that's pretty standard with PC experience. Generally, I find that from the HDR monitors that I've tried. Sometimes it just makes it look worse, and I actually prefer to turn the HDR off, but I do test it out, and it does vary. And the number of HDR games kind of limited anyway in some ways. But here you can see a bit of some games which give you a good color range, so you can see just some of the colors in it. It's really hard to do it justice, obviously over the camera, and then depending on what you're watching on, probably won't give you the same experience that you would get if you're actually playing on it. But what I found was I was just really impressed with it in a number of different ways. Really smooth experience, really rich in terms of its colors, just satisfying. At 32 inches as well, it delivers a really nice experience. It's a good size. It's a good size and it's good balance of all the things. Obviously, reasonably high refresh rate, good pixel density, and a good looking screen. It also fills up the desk nicely, and it just helps you to get fully immersed into the game. By the way, if you're wondering what the lighting is going on the back, that's nothing to do with the monitor. That's actually the Philips Hue gradient lighting bar, which I've done a video on separately, which I've stuck to the back of this monitor for testing purposes, and that syncs and can be used to sync with your game, so that you can actually change the lighting depending on what's happening on the screen. It's not doing it right now, it's just in the standard lighting mode. But as you'll have seen some of shots, it actually mimicked the colors, and I've done a video on that in a bit more depth to show you that. But that adds an extra highlight to it that isn't obviously there as standard. And the overall experience with the monitor has been a really good one in a number of different ways. I have very few complaints about it. What I will say, though, it is very expensive. You're pushing £1,000 sterling, probably the same in dollars and elsewhere. So it is really a lot of money, but you are getting a really good experience with some really good features and really good specs for it as well. So I actually think it's probably worth it based on my experience. I personally bought an Acer Predator monitor for about the same amount of money, which was also 4K and had similar specs. And this is really comparable. They've done a really good job of it. I'm really impressed with it, and I would quite happily keep it. I have to send it back, but it is certainly worth it, and that is obviously a testament to how good it is. Would I swap my Samsung 49-inch super ultra wide monitor for it? No, probably not, but it is still worth looking at. This has been the Provoked Prawn. I hope you found this video useful. If you enjoyed it, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Pop over to my Discord to say hello. And a quick shout out to all my YouTube members that help support the channel. If you'd like to see the benefits of being a member, click that join button to find out more. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.